You're watching the AI Report. We have a lot of important news to cover today. Let's get into it. AI is such a double-edged sword for the environment. On one hand, there are some valid concerns that the compute required to power the training of models is so huge that the energy used has a noticeable impact on the environment. But on the other hand, companies like Orbital Sidekick use AI to identify potential emissions of methane, which is a strong greenhouse gas. The 3 satellites analyze 500 types of light to identify methane leaking from the ground. Okay, the environmentalists are not going to like hearing this. Turns out our planet pollutes itself, and the gas is leaking straight from the ground. Maybe our planet is like, what are you humans doing? I love poisonous gases and plastic and garbage and radiation. It's only you humans that are bothered by that. Next, it seems like your average OpenAI engineer makes almost $1 million a year. The average salary is around $925,000. Wow. You do need to be a genius with a published study or a PhD or have a few extraordinary accomplishments in the field to get the job. I think this is going to play out the same way it did with software engineers a few decades ago, but probably on an even bigger scale. 20 or 30 years ago, there were almost no software engineers, and while they never earned $1 million a year in salary, they were still paid a lot of money. And there was only like 40 of them in the whole world. In 5 years, every pimple-faced teenager and hipster reinventing himself and his career and greedy little climber will be an AI engineer, and these types of salaries will get slashed a few times over. Just a prediction. Speaking of predictions, DeemMind co-founder and the exact face that comes to mind when you think of the words AI nerd, Mustafa Suleyman, thinks we will have AI assistants in 5 years. Our personal AI assistants will know us, understand us, know our history, our likes and dislikes, aid us with everything, and help us stay afloat in this big bad world. That sounds about right. Keep in mind, however, that an AI assistant wouldn't be that much more useful than our current technology, unless it has superintelligence. It will likely do everything that you do yourself on the internet with a smartphone or a computer, but do it through a voice command maybe. And it will be a bit more personalized, and probably a bit smarter too. Okay, these things will be cool, sure. Having your own Jarvis sounds pretty solid. Another Google big shot, former CEO Eric Schmidt, also talks about the same time frame, 5 years, but his prediction is that AI might become a lot more than just a personal assistant. He thinks AI can become capable of self-learning. Also, he sounds worried about open-source AI models as they can be very easily put to evil uses. It pains me to say this because I love open source, but I think that people who refuse to see any possible danger with open-source AI models are being naive, or maybe have some other agenda in mind. It's literally the first thing that occurs to you if you think about the issue for more than 40 seconds. By the way, I'm not saying open-source AI should be stopped. If that happens, evil big corporations eventually win and take over everything. Even if the most advanced AI models are open source, they still require massive resources for training and fine-tuning, and they also usually come with some guardrails. So the danger currently isn't that great. To be fair though, that's probably the exact reason why the potential is not that great either, at least until now. I don't know. This is a pretty difficult problem. Sounds like we need a way to both allow the development and use of open source AIs and also impose a great deal of control on how they're used at the same time. And those two things are opposed to one another. Currently, we are in a pickle when it comes to open source AI, and there are no good solutions in sight. Speaking of no good solutions, the Pentagon is developing a scary master plan for deploying various AI weapon systems, notably drones, but also other autonomous weapons. The excuse is to counter potential threats from China. Okay, I know this statement will achieve absolutely nothing, but it will make me feel a little bit better about myself and possibly make me look virtuous in your eyes. So I will say it. US, China, please don't go to war. That would really, really, really suck for all of us. Sincerely, the world. And while we're at US government entities, prosecutors in all of the US states urge Congress to study how AI can be used to exploit children through pornography and try to prevent it. Their concerns include creating deepfake materials of children, either already abused or not, and the digital creation of a fictitious child, which might increase demand for such material. I guess their arguments make sense. I mean, from my understanding of the problem, demand for such material is not something you could generate with deepfakes. But maybe, worst case scenario, the material becomes so vile at some point that it encourages otherwise maybe passive abusers to act on it. On the other hand, however, if we just look at how regular pornography has practically castrated the entire male gender, maybe this kind of material would end up having the opposite effect of what the prosecutors fear. I mean, porn single-handedly demoralized entire generations of men. It shattered their libidos, it twisted and destroyed their sexual identities, and forever eliminated any excuse to go put up with real women in order to pursue intercourse with them. However, I would imagine that child abusers don't really pay that much attention to the social norms and morals that prevent people from getting their desires fulfilled. I mean, regular guys and child abusers are very, very, very different groups of people. They play by very different rules, which is why we maybe can't really compare these two. Geez, how are we gonna handle this? I guess trying to ban such technologies sounds like the reasonable thing to do for now, and this is one of those areas where we can't afford to experiment and learn through trial and error. On the other hand, maybe banning these materials might even have the unintended consequences and result in child abusers actually getting more desperate and maybe even doing more heinous things. I don't know. I just don't want to be in the shoes of legislators battling with this issue. Next, scientists from the Ames National Laboratory have developed an AI model that can discover critical element-free permanent magnet materials. The magnets are critical for wind energy, data storage, electric vehicles, magnetic refrigeration, and other technologies. Currently, access to materials with the same properties, which include neodymium and dysprosium, I swear to you I've never uttered these two words before in my life, those are very limited, and the new potential materials will make all of these technologies more feasible. Awesome. Great job. Not much else to say here. And finally, here's something that's not so awesome, at least not for Matias S. Zavia and other Spanish translators formerly working at Gizmodo. They have been laid off and replaced with AI, which seems to do a pretty bad job of nailing the Spanish translation so far. The public, of course, is outraged, and I gotta be honest here, that always kinda baffles me. Look, I get it, this is horrible for the people laid off, we all agree on that. But I run a very, very small business, I only have a handful of employees, and that's still enough to provide me with a lot of perspective and a basic level understanding of how the world works. What people don't understand or pretend not to understand is that literally every business in the world is fighting death every single day. That's the brutal reality of every business. Trust me, even seemingly big businesses are constantly on their toes trying to figure out how to stay alive one more day sometimes, let alone one more year in the most unpredictable, turbulent time in tech in decades. Sites like Gizmodo and other similar blogs have already been on the decline for a few years now. I just don't think this is a cold, calculated move to save a few pennies. I think it's a desperate attempt at staying afloat. I use sites like Gizmodo and other similar sites, as you can see, to see the news, and even though I usually struggle to avoid all the negativity and propaganda and baloney and fluff and agendas they're trying to push, I'm still glad they exist. I literally need them to run my channel. My guess is that people who read these sites at least like them, in which case, God help you, but you still wouldn't want to see them go under, right? To be honest, I have no idea how Gizmodo management runs this site. Maybe they are torturing employees and enjoy firing them and seeing them in tears and feeling a massive rush of blood to their sensitive body parts when the fired employees beg for their jobs while they laugh like Dracula. I honestly don't know, and there's a really small chance that's the case probably. But my somewhat educated best guess is that these are also entrepreneurs and content creators, and even though they run on a bigger scale and make a lot of money, they also probably operate on some relatively thin and risky margins, which means they are often at risk of going bankrupt and dying. All I can say is, if you are tempted to harshly judge any business for decisions like this, try running a business of your own first. Try running a business in tech, and even try running a media business in the age of AI. I promise you, it's the most difficult thing ever. I myself have had to let go or otherwise disappoint employees in the past, and it sucks. I believe that the vast majority of business owners out there are not some sadistic psychopaths, and they want their employees to be happy with them. Sometimes, however, when the choice is letting go of some employees versus losing the entire business and then letting go of all of the employees, like literally every single person working for you losing their job, then you are forced to make a difficult but probably still correct decision. The thing is, it feels like AI is going to force us to make a lot of difficult decisions soon, and that's the way it is. There was the AI report. I'll let you know a decision that's not difficult at all, and that's smashing the subscribe button. Go ahead and do that. I appreciate you guys. I may actually take a few days off. I think I'll change the plan a little bit here, but I'll be back before you notice. So take care, and maybe I will see you tomorrow.